Welcome to another lecture of Software-Defined Radio. I'm Tayfun. Much like the iconic Hello World of programming, our journey into GNU Radio begins with a simple yet foundational exercise. We will generate and display a constant signal. This project may seem basic at first glance, but it introduces you to several key concepts essential for building and running Flowgraphs. By the end of this lesson, you will have a clearer understanding of the foundational steps in working with GNU Radio Companion. When you open a GNU Radio Companion for the first time, it automatically presents you with a blank flow graph, a workspace where you will create and connect blocks to design your STR projects. If for some reason you don't see a blank flow graph, don't worry, you can quickly create one by navigating to File, New, and Qt Graphical User Interface, and that's it. Or you can also simply use the handy keyboard shortcut for Ctrl plus N, and that's it. Once that's done, you are ready to dive in and craft your first STR masterpiece. Flow graphs in GNU Radio are essentially collections of interconnected blocks, each serving a specific purpose. While you could scroll through a list of over 100 blocks to find what you need, a much faster method is using the search function. This feature saves you time and effort, especially when you know the name or even part of the name of the block you are looking for. To use the search function, click on the magnifying glass icon located near the right end of the toolbar. This action will open a search box at the top of the block list, making it easy to narrow down your options. For example, source. And here we are seeing the source. Our first goal is to create a stream of unchanging numbers and visualize them. For this, we will use the constant source block, which generates a steady stream of numbers with a fixed value. And here from the waveform generators tab, we will drag constant source here. Position the constant source block on the left side of your workspace. While it is not mandatory, this layout follows a logical flow where source blocks start on the left and data flows to sync blocks on the right. This conversion makes your flow graphs easier to read and understand. Next, you will add a travel block to the right of the constant source. This block plays a crucial role in managing the speed of data flow through your system, ensuring your computer doesn't overwork itself unnecessarily. Without it, the flow graph might consume more resources than needed, potentially causing your machine to run harder and slower than desirable. Using the search bar to look for a travel and drag the block into your workspace. Place it just to the right of the constant source block, creating a logical data path. To visualize the digital data stream generated by your flow graph, you will need an instrumentation block. Enter the T2 graphical user interface time sync. And don't worry about the capitalization here. Like we can also write like this, time sync, and drag into your workspace and position it to the right of the travel block. Now your flow graph is starting to take shape and you have already taken some significant steps toward mastering GNU Radio, but this is just the beginning. Great work so far. Now it is time to bring your flow graph to life by connecting the blocks you added. Think of this step as creating a pathway for data to travel from the source, where data is generated, to the sink, where it is displayed. To connect the blocks in GNU Radio, you don't just click, you drag. Here's how to link the constant source block to the throttle block. You will move the cursor to the output port on the right side of the constant source block, labeled like out. We will click and hold and then drag a line to the input port on the left side of the throttle block, labeled in. Once the line is complete, you should release the mouse button. should now see a connection line with a arrow pointing from the constant source block to the throttle block. This arrow indicates the direction of data flow, showing that the constant values generated by the source are being sent to throttle for processing. Now let's complete the flow graph by linking the throttle block to the key to graphical user interface time sync. Position your cursor over the output port on the right side of the throttle block. Click and drag from the throttle's output port to the input port on the left side of the QT time sync, and release the mouse button to establish the connection. Well done. You will see another arrowed line, this time indicating the flow of processed data from the throttle to the graphical user interface sync for visualization. The connections in a flow graph are not just decorative. They represent the actual flow of data within your program. Each block processes the data it receives, modifies it according to its function, and then passes it along to the next block. For instance, the constant source block generates an unchanging stream of numbers. The throttle block regulates the flow of data to prevent your computer from overloading, and graphical user interface time sync receives the regulated data and displays it graphically in real time. The rows in your flow graph ensure you always know the direction in which data flows, making it easier to debug and expand your designs later. Before moving on, take a moment to tidy up your workspace. While block positioning doesn't affect functionality, a clean and logical layout makes it easier to understand your flow graph at a glance. Now use the click and drag method to reposition any block and place source blocks like the constant source on the far left of the sync blocks, like time sync on the far right, and keep the intermediate blocks like throttle in between. Like, think of this as a maintaining code hygiene for flow graph. It is easier to read and maintain a neat workspace. With all the blocks connected, your first flow graph is complete. Take a moment to admire your work. You have built a functioning SDR flow graph. This seemingly simple exercise introduces you to the core workflow of GNU Radio, adding blocks, connecting them, and creating data flows. Up to next, we will configure the settings for each block and run the flow graph. Also, we will observe the magic in action. Let's keep building your SDR expertise.